You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
The trading day doesn't start when the opening bell rings. Pros understand that risk never sleeps, and market-moving events happen around the clock. How can you arm yourself with the information you need to understand what's going on across the pond and how it can impact your portfolio? Welcome to the European Market Brief, your go-to source for information on the fast-moving European derivatives markets. Each episode brings you expert insights into the latest market trends, discussions of cutting-edge trading strategies, breakdowns of exciting new products, and analysis of thought-provoking trading activity. The European Market Brief, brought to you by EUREX, is your trusted source for the latest insights on European trading and market trends. As the home of Euro stocks, VSTOXX, DAX, and European rates derivatives like the Bund, Bobl, and Schatz, EUREX stands as the leading European derivatives exchange. Learn more about trading EUREX futures and options at www.eurex.com. So join us as we shine a spotlight across the pond and explore the cross-border volatility, regulation, and innovation that makes the marketplace so fascinating. It's time to get the European Market Brief.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back. It is time once again to voyage across the pond, see what's going on the European side of the marketplace. Yes, it is time once again for the European Market Brief. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks are binging these days. Remember, if you want to check out everything we have going on, make sure you subscribe to the full network. And of course, if you want to join us for, let's say, the upcoming Volatility Deathmatch 2.0, as well as check out the panel I just did at the STAC 100th anniversary celebration, looking back at the whole full history of options, then check out the pro. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more as we learn who's joining us on this fine episode here. First, we go out to, could it be the hinterlands of Chicago? Could be a lake in Indiana? Could be somewhere around the globe. Let's find out, as we are joined once again by our good buddy, Mr. Russell Rhoads, now holding court over there at the Indiana University Kelley School of Business. Mr. Rhoads, welcome back to the European Market Brief, sir.
Well, as always, very happy to be here. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. We're going to talk about the stock indexes, which is where I got my start and an area I've done a lot of work when I've been consulting with EUREX on. So I'm very excited about today's program.
All right, and joining us to have some fun today, we have two newcomers on the European Market Brief. First, we are joined in the EUREX hot seat by Cornelius Trenz. He is the head of sales for the Americas over there at EUREX. Cornelius, welcome to the European Market Brief, sir.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Thank you very much for the invite.
And as we like to do with all of our first timers, Cornelius, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a bit of an overview of your background in the space, as well as what it is you do over there at EUREX.
So I'm with EUREX for more than 10 years, and I've been now relocating to the US about 7 months ago, and I'm now heading the office here for the Americas for EUREX on cross-asset derivative sales.
Wow, you get the record for the fastest intro we've had so far here on the show. And then next up, another newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. She is Helena Jarabakova, the Business Development and Strategic Partnerships Lead for the Americas over there at TradingView. Helena, welcome to the European Market Brief.
Thank you, Mark. Really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Same question for you. Why don't you go ahead and give our audience a bit of an overview of your background in the space, as well as what it is you do over there at TradingView.
As you said, I look after growth and partnerships at TradingView. I joined about 5 months ago from CME, where I spent 12 years, both in London and New York. Also recently relocated. this time from London to the West Coast. So pretty similar story to Cornelius.
All right, then, with the team assembled, it is time to kick off our continental conversation.
It's time to catch up with the thought leaders who are shaping the European derivatives markets. It's time to have Continental Conversations.
Such a jaunty tune. Welcome to the Continental Conversations, listeners, where we explore some topics, some areas of interest, some markets, and indeed some products across the pond that may indeed interest you. We're going to kick things off today looking a little bit more at the lens through which some of you folks, particularly here in the US, might be looking at and accessing and analyzing some of these products across the pond. That's why Helena is here today. Perfect person to talk to. Helena, we will start with you. We haven't had TradingView on this program, and it's been a while, I do believe, since we've had anyone from TradingView on the network. So let's start there. Real quick overview of TradingView. What is it? How do you differentiate yourself from a broker? You know, are you a charting platform? Are you a broker? Are you a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B? And then who's using this thing? Is it retail? Is it professional? Give us the full overview, Helena.
Thank you, of course. So TradingView is the world's largest network of self-directed traders and investors built around real-time market data and visual analysis. We've been around for about 15 years, certainly catered to retail as well as professionals. We have over 100 million users globally. Most people use TradingView to check markets, place trades, and manage their money in one place quickly and intuitively. Whether it's STOXX, options, ETFs, or crypto, the experience is designed to be simple and familiar, more like using a consumer app than a traditional trading platform. So just to give you an example, a typical user might chart the price moves of mini DAX futures or Euro STOXX 50 index futures in the morning, check the related news, look at correlations across equities or rates, and then share an idea with their followers. They might then decide to trade that instrument from a super chart by routing that instrument to a brokerage platform of their choice.
All right, and Cornelius, as our go-to EUREX representative, if you're looking for some EUREX products you want to analyze over there at TradingView, what can I find? What can I analyze? What can I trade over there on TradingView?
So basically everything, which is great. We started with futures on that platform and also designed within our partnership with TradingView a very advantageous deal where you can get just for $2 all of the EUREX products in real time at level 1 data, which is great. It made our futures very accessible for everyone globally interested in that. And within that package, you get everything from EUREX, from all the big benchmark indices, from the big Euro stocks to the more broad-based STOXX 600 index, down to the sector indices. Of course, all the leading national indices such as DAX and all its variations from the big one, the medium-sized one, down to the micro one. And most recently, we've been also adding options. Sorry, my voice is a bit hurt from a cold I got. I just feel the voice is going a bit down. But we've been adding options where we've got all benchmark options on indices, as well as, I think, in the pipeline are single name options, where we're basically the European one-stop shop. If you want to trade Europe, you just need to go to EUREX. You've got all the major indices and all its subcomponents in single name futures or in single name options. And right now, the fun is basically with the real-time data trading package you can get on TradingView. You get all of these indices basically in this one package and can have a look at those. So equity index, single name equities, and combined with that also whatever you need when it comes to European rates, from Bund, Bobl, Schatz, the leading German yield products, next to also the Spanish, Italian, Swiss, and French 10 to 5 years products, where you can then basically implement any sort of strategy in between European yields you want to play or have a look at as a retailer.
Mr. Rhoads, you're in a similar position to us. You're always out there utilizing and analyzing and taking advantage of a variety of different information platforms and tools and analytics platforms. We're always juggling quite a few. You're always on here talking about the latest and greatest tools to analyze these markets and products as well. So first, if you have, a use case or thoughts on TradingView you want to share with the folks, by all means, have at it. And then B, what are you seeing out there as you're, of course, dealing with a lot of the academic side of the space and a lot of the future retail traders of the world over there at IU? What are they using and what are they seeing over there on the TradingView platform, sir?
Well, we'll all just hold our nose up a little bit. Unfortunately, most of the college students are Robinhood fans, which I do try to steer them away from. But that's, I don't want to get myself in trouble with that one. As far as just, the European markets and kind of the wave that we used to experience back when you and I started in the markets, it's a little bit different now just because there's a lot more information. If you ever read anything about the 87 crash, bet you didn't think that was going to come up today. But it was like this wave thing where on Sunday night, Tokyo opened and then Europe was down and then we followed them down. And there used to be, in fact, I won a trading contest back in college because I would go short or long the S&P 100 based on what the DAX was doing. If the DAX was down, I would short on the open. If the DAX were up, I would buy it on the open. And it actually worked a bit.
It's back when people still traded the OEX. Good luck finding that now.
Now, this is in the late 80s, so I'm really showing my age here. But there definitely is, that relationship there. And I'd have to turn on a business network to see what the DAX was doing back then. Now I don't have to do that. I've got many broker platforms, not all, but many include different exposure to EUREX. Sometimes I have a bit of a difficult time because not all of them are as consistent, I think, as TradingView is. And I'm going to hand that over to Helena because she knows more about that than I do. But we definitely key a bit off of what's going on in Europe. And if Europe's behaving very differently than the U.S., people are exploring that one as well.
Let's get into it a little bit, Helena, then. Obviously, you have a lot of retail users. You said 100 million flocking to the platform on a regular basis. A lot of them coming through the lens of the European markets. As you track their progress, as you see what they're looking at and trading and analyzing over there, what are some of the issues, some of the perhaps mistakes you see folks encountering when they're first trying to chart and analyze and trade these European products?
The biggest mistake we see when people start trading is moving too fast. And this is probably something, Russell, you bring up when you speak to your students. It's a very standard answer. I think new traders often focus on short-term outcomes rather than building good habits. Things like understanding risk, position sizing, and how different market conditions affect performance. And given how quickly news and macro events are happening at the moment, traders have to be really aware of that. Markets reward discipline over time, but it's very natural for beginners to react emotionally to volatility or headlines. That's not a lack of intelligence. It's definitely lack of experience. So certainly our focus is on helping users slow down, get context, educate themselves, build confidence gradually, rather than encouraging impulsive behavior. And later on, when we'll get to that, I'll explain some of the tactics that we're using, or tools that we're using in the platform to do that.
Speaking of the platform, Russell brought up Robinhood and the brokers. Let's just clarify for the listeners out there, a TradingView versus a broker. Clarify the differences there.
Yes, absolutely. So there is a bit of a difference between the two of us. Certainly traditional block broker platforms were developed for, back in the day, for professionals and day traders. TradingView very much was built for everyday investors who are interested in markets. Our goal has always been to make markets accessible to everyone. Traditional broker platforms were also built primarily for execution. Our platform is built for charting and education. So I would say TradingView sits between those two worlds, where brokers have actually become our key partners. Over time, we have created a large ecosystem. We have over 100 brokers integrated with TradingView, giving users great choice regardless of where they're based. So as I said, essentially, we focus on helping investors and traders form better decisions visually, socially, and across asset classes without locking them into a single broker or market.
And what I love about TradingView is really the community, I would say. I mean, you've got a great community out there discussing ideas. When I started with that, just gathering ideas, looking into new products, I think you could always find a forum on TradingView where those ideas were discussed or where some technical analysis was posted. I think you've got a very active community also in European markets. And what you said is great. I mean, we've seen lots of brokers out there who do not have the best UX, not the best interface to trade or to analyze with charts. And I think that is where TradingView can really deliver value add. With the broker integration you've mentioned via APIs, you can sort of check any broker which is offering EUREX, and having a connection to TradingView enables you to basically check, analyze, discuss on TradingView, and just do the execution with your broker in a fully integrated environment. I think that's really where the beauty comes in.
Well, Cornelius, it is your first appearance on the show and indeed on the network. Now, bear in mind, we have had nearly a dozen episodes now of the European market brief, so we have carved up the entry points to EUREX in a variety of different ways. But like I said, this is your first appearance, so if there's anything particular you want to hit on or emphasize, there still are new listeners every episode who are coming in. Maybe they're discovering EUREX, maybe they're discovering TradingView for the first time. Maybe some key areas of difference or things they should be aware of as they're coming to grips with EUREX's products on the platform for the first time.
It depends a bit where you're based. I think in Europe, you'll find a whole variety of brokers giving you full access to EUREX and its product. I think with more than 2,000 products on the platform, and then looking at the future space, more than, I think, 25, 30, which are highly interesting, highly liquid, with very tight spreads and low execution fees. I think in Europe, you would, for example, find a different landscape of retail users being familiar with leveraged products. You would have much more an emphasis on structured products issued by banks, with the inherent counterparty risk you would have on that. And that market we see with the regulation are slowly shifting more towards listed derivatives, so that people do not trade structured products which look like futures and options from its design, but are basically issued by banks. And also, we see the market shifting away from CFDs, so other leveraged products, to listed futures. So retailers in Europe can access those with some criteria, of course. And we've got a multitude of brokers. And we see that market also being very much in action with new brokers, for example, from the US, intending to come into Europe and to basically offer European products within their platform. If you're based in the US, that's slightly different, because I think you're restricted down to the CFTC approved products, so the ones accessible for American traders, which are basically then still all the highly liquid futures on equity and index, the broad-based ones, as well as the rates products.
Mr. Rhoads, when you're not talking to us here on the show, you're busy corrupting the young minds of the future and luring them to the dark side of all things European markets. When those new traders are first coming to grips with the European markets and indeed these products, what are some of the things, maybe areas of difficulty or obstacles you notice, sir?
I think one of the biggest problems is that people try to trade everything. I think some of us have all gone through a period where we were trading from home for a while, and I was trading from home for a while. And I had a next door neighbor that, because of what I was doing, he would ask me what was going on, et cetera, but he would glue himself to the TV and watch what Kramer was talking about and trade what Kramer talked about every week, even if he didn't know anything about the stocks, So, I tell people to focus in on something very small when you're starting out. If you try to be very broad and trade everything, you're really not going to have much of a knowledge edge or an experience edge on anyone. And for the European markets, I think the index futures, the STOXX 50 index futures and the DAX index futures are a great area to focus in on if you're dipping your toe in the European markets. Also, Cornelius said something that I've had in the back of my mind, but I haven't heard anybody say it out loud. The leveraged ETFs. I have been wondering if they would start to become a gateway to the futures markets. Because you start, if you're trading a 3 times ETF and you look at your capital usage there, and then you compare it to capital usage in the futures markets, you're probably better off using futures. But a lot of equity-only traders, still have a little bit of a fear relative to derivative markets, even though they shouldn't. So I kind of like the leveraged ETF as a little bit of a gateway to get people into the futures markets.
A lot of gateways these days, levered, binaries, and no shortage of ways to dive into the futures waters out there. But you mentioned trading everything, Mr. Rhoads, and that brings me to one of the things that excited me about this episode. An interesting thing that you folks are cooking up over there at EUREX. Cornelius, the Leap. Tell us all about the Leap. What is this thing?
So the Leap is the latest product, let's say, of the partnership of EUREX and TradingView. So in order to get traders going and getting the experience and familiarize themselves with the products, as Russell said, the Leap really offers you a great opportunity to do so. So it's a paper trading competition. You can check that out. We created a short link at eurex.com/competition. Where you can basically, for a limited time period from February 2nd to February 27, trade without any risk within a paper trading competition some key EUREX products, from the highly interesting DAX, from the big to the mini to the micro DAX, EuroStoxx, the more broad-based 600 one. Also, one of our sector indices is included with the bank's future. Just to mention that EUREX has also a variety of sector futures where we see that sector rotation and having an opinion on European sectors becomes more and more important, since, for example, the DAX is highly dominated by industrials, chemicals, and has a different sensitivity to for example, tariffs. Those are included, as well as our main rates products. So the Bund, Bobl, Schatz, the German 10-5 2-year debt, as well as the Spanish. And you can basically sort and check those products, familiarize yourself with them. And basically with $100,000 US dollars in paper money, trade those and just check it out and see if you are amongst the winners. We've got a highly interesting prize pool. Everyone can participate who is basically a TradingView subscriber, but also you can just get a trial plan, which we highly recommend to make use of all the functionalities TradingView offers. And then you can participate and compete for a total prize pool of $20,000 US dollars. The first place will get a 3,000, second 2,500, and 2,000, 1,500 for the consecutive places. But everyone up to place 250 will be a winner, either with a small amount of $200, but also a 3-month subscription to TradingView and also packages for real-time data. So check out the prices. At eurex.com/competition, you'll be redirected to the TradingView page, and you can check out all the prices as well as the products included in there. I think there's also a great video on just to check out how paper trading works. I mean, in the end, you can trade it and familiarize yourself just as you would then use TradingView for. And use it also in a way in case you're at one of the brokers which has an API connection. I think you can sort of use it in exactly the same way. So without any risk, you can have 1 month of fun trading EUREX products, trading Europe, trading your opinions on those markets. And just see if your strategies work, if your opinions hold, and put the paper money where your mouth is for 1 month and see if you'll land amongst the winners in that really interesting prize pool.
That should be your tagline for it. Put your paper money where your mouth is. But I'm looking at that page right now, listeners. Again, that's eurex.com/competition. That will reroute you over there to the page on TradingView. It kicks off in under 6 days now, listeners. Nearly 2,000 people signed up already. As Cornelius mentioned, over $20,000 in prizes in the prize pool out there. And the competition, kicks off in about 6 days. Exciting stuff. Helena, you folks are obviously running it behind the scenes. It redirects over there to TradingView. So give us your thoughts on the leap and what you're seeing and hearing from folks so far.
Absolutely. The numbers will go up, by the way. We definitely expecting the number to triple or quadruple over the next two weeks or so. So please join when you have a moment. It'll take you a couple of seconds to register. It's a very quick process. I think we all need to remember that futures and derivatives behave very differently from spot markets. Participants need to understand contract structure, volatility, margin dynamics, and how markets move around events. And that's very hard to learn with real money on the line from day one. So that's why we've designed these competitions. They've been running since early last year. Super excited to partner with EUREX on this one, where we are really honing in on some of the greatest products that EUREX have got out there for European as well as hopefully some US participants. So far, we've, by the way, engaged participants in 9 different competitions and had about 700,000 people, traders, trading so far. So we look at Leap as a place where traders practice the process, not just to get to the outcome. I think for anyone listening, you will definitely learn how futures move intraday, how liquidity behaves around European market hours, how contracts react to macro data, and how volatility expands or contracts, all using real market prices in simulated environments. So absolutely nothing to lose. Join today.
Our live chat certainly seems excited about it. I think we got a few new registrants after this. Today, of course, we'll see some more flock in when it goes live on the network as well. But always exciting stuff out here. Mr. Rhoads, this sounds like the perfect gateway entry points for a lot of your students out there. They're always asking you questions about a surprising number of futures markets. It might be an interesting entry point for them into the world of European derivatives. What do you think, sir?
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of traders don't take into mind, and something that I think is very interesting about EUREX and the EUREX markets, is we get an extra close. And trading around the close and using closing data, is a lot of the strategies that I use. So mid-morning when things start to slow down a little bit in the U.S., there's closing volatility associated with the EUREX markets. If you ever take a look at volume during trading days, there's a lot near the open, a lot near the traditional close. So I think you could actually, as a U.S. participant, have no problem. You don't have to get up at 3 a.m. to compete in this. And in fact, you may help yourself by not falling into some behavioral traps if there's a little bit too much volatility going as well. So I've got a few budding traders. I got one kid that just gave me a business plan for his hedge fund. He's a sophomore in college. I'm going to put him in here and see how he does. And I'll probably join as well. I usually, when I've done this before with students, I give them a prize if they beat me. So I still have a handful of EUREX STOXX from last year's conference, so I'll probably use those.
So you're not planning to fund that sophomore personally? You're going to bankroll his hedge fund, Mr. Rhoads?
No, he knows I used to work at a pretty prominent hedge fund and wants me to introduce him to the guy. So
you're not just professor, you're cap intro for your students. I see.
I'm babysitter, a dating advice person. It's unbelievable.
All right. On that terrifying note, listeners, let's keep rolling, explore some of the activity that's lighting up the markets right now. It is time to check in with the overnight desk.
What's lighting up the tape in the European derivatives markets right now? Let's find out. It's time to check in with the Overnight Desk.
All All right, a lot going on in the Eurozone these days. A lot of it really impacting markets across the pond here and around the world. I see questions coming in about Greenland and VSTOXX, how that's impacting it. Well, good timing. We are going to get into all that fun right now. Mr. Rhoads, let's start there. Our chat dictates where we go, and they want to talk VSTOXX and Greenland. It is very much top of mind for a lot of folks out here. You know, we always get a chance to look at it through the U.S. lens every Friday on Volatility Views, but obviously we saw quite a dust up over Greenland. Apparently it's settled now. I guess the devil is in the details. The folks are working that out as we speak, but you're obviously out there tracking VSTOXX versus VIX on a regular basis. What did you see as this, let's just call it dust up, unfolded? Now that it has hopefully resolved itself, what are you seeing as a result in terms of European vol versus U.S. vol, sir?
I think when the current president of the United States speaks, we've learned to not react too violently. We did get a move up in VSTOXX this past week, like we did in VIX. They've both been behaving kind of in line with each other over the past few months. There was for almost a year. We had VIX at a premium to VSTOXX, which is kind of an unusual state to be in. So we're kind of back to a more normal environment. I do think there are fewer economic concerns in the U.S. than there are over in Europe. As much criticism as the Fed gets here, we seem to be experiencing decent growth. Inflation seems to be a little bit under control. And as much criticism as those poor guys get, I think they've managed the economy fairly well. So, I'm not certain if the Greenland thing, which I feel is kind of behind us now, is still priced into VSTOXX versus VIX, or if it's some other macro concerns that are floating around out there.
Always fun to get a very European-centric vol event to see the interplay between VSTOXX and VIX. Cornelius, same question for you. If you have any thoughts or anything you want to add on what Russell was just laying down in terms of European vol versus U.S. vol and how they've played out recently. And also, speaking of things playing out, there's a lot of things potentially playing out in the court system that might potentially impact everything going on in the Eurozone. We're expecting any time now to hear rulings on the tariffs. Those, of course, very much germane to the trade between the Eurozone and the U.S. There's been a lot going on, back and forth tariffs. We're seeing a deal today, Eurozone with India, one of the largest trade deals ever struck. So there's a lot going on the international side that is impacting the Eurozone. What are you seeing out there from the European perspective, sir?
Yeah, so I think this week we're going to have also German GDP data. After a very muted and pessimistic outlook, I think we see that brightening up again. And here, I think it will be interesting to watch all the different DAX versions then later this week. And as you mentioned, the Supreme Court ruling, that's of course something to focus on. I mean, honestly, hard to track all the back and forth on the tariffs and for the European countries, and especially Germany with its sensitivities on export. That will be, of course, a highly interesting decision if the Supreme Court rules against the tariffs, and I think the 8 countries concerned with the extra tariffs. I think we'll see an impact on that in case that goes down. And overall, I think that's also going to be a pretty interesting year. Now, looking beyond this week, I think the European markets are going to be quite interesting this year with big trade deals coming up with either India, with the tensions around Mercosur at the European Parliament level. All of those, for me, indicate a shifting landscape also on how we export and where we export. You will see, I think, that reflected in the prices on the export-sensitive DAX, but also then overall on the Euro stocks itself. We've got also quite some elections coming up. I believe as the first one to go down is going to be Hungary. Hungary known as being very Eurosceptic, and with an opposition building up in Hungary, that could change the European overall picture, with one of the veto countries maybe going out of government. that could change something fundamentally in Europe, and markets could potentially react to that. Later this year, there's also the French local elections, a pre-indicator then for the state elections, as well as then German local elections, where the extreme right could gain more power, and that could have a direct impact then on the national level fiscal policies. That could reflect right away in the Bund yields of the German 10-year debt. So I think an exciting year ahead, a great moment again to start with a leap, to have a look at those products, to be then in a good position to execute on your opinions on those.
I'm hard-pressed to think of the last time we had so many different European and Eurozone-related stories in the headlines, including just today. Again, that India Eurozone trade deal, a pretty big deal. Our chat talking about it there as well. Helena, from your seat over there at TradingView, you have a nice vantage point to be able to watch what pretty much the entire retail trading globe is interested in, the products, the markets, the trends. I'm curious, what are you seeing developing over there? What are some of the hot products, the hot markets, the hot trends that you're seeing over there at TradingView right now, particularly through the lens of Europe and the Eurozone?
From my perspective, we are continuously improving charting and our screeners. So anyone who is actively using the platform or just about to start, definitely check out our TradingView blog. We publish updates on improvements pretty much on daily basis, and there are plenty. Couple of other things I wanted to mention. We are continuously improving and adding new data sets to the platform. This is key. Having access to a huge and broad set of instruments is a huge strategic priority for us. We very much focused on options, and with that in mind, we've added both EUREX as well as CME options products to the platform fairly recently. So that's something to watch out for. But options trading is becoming incredibly popular. We're seeing a huge increase year over year when it comes to options, not just from the largest markets such as US, Canada, but also India. We're seeing pockets of very active trading activity from Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, as well as some countries in Europe, such as the UK and Netherlands. So certainly options are here to stay. They're becoming much more mass market, and we continue to develop functionality that supports both single and complex options trading.
And I believe the first version of your options overview is already great. For me, it's a very accessible tool. I just checked out the DAX options in there, and when you can get all the Greeks, you can build your strategies. You can get a nice vol surface, I think, for a free tool to use. And of course, you can always upgrade your plan, as Helena, I'm sure, would mention. But you can already get a great set of tools looking at options to familiarize yourself and start with that. Can basically check out all the main EUREX options in there in a very nice, clean, and very usable interface.
Mr. Rhoads, you're my go-to guy when it comes to correlation. We got so excited with the news last week, we forgot to talk about your correlation research that we requested on Volatility View. So hopefully we'll have time to get to that this week. But looking at it through the lens of the Eurozone, in particular DAX, what are you seeing right now from a correlation perspective and all these dust-ups we're talking about here, whether it's Greenland, whether it's tariffs, whether it's all these different shocks to the system that Cornelius just pointed out? How are they potentially impacting that correlation, sir?
Well, actually, I'm looking at the STOXX 50 versus the DAX. They are the two markets that have just enough differences that I've done some pair trading with them in the past, or I've chosen one over the other. And over the long term, the correlation between the two is 0.94. But on a rolling 250-day basis, it can get as low as 0.85. So they do disconnect periodically, and you have spread trading opportunities there. The implied vol is almost it's almost slightly higher for DAX than the STOXX 50. If you're an academic, the reason that you're going to say the reason for that is because 40 stocks are more volatile than 50 stocks. You can start to punch holes in that one. I think it's maybe just DAX is a little bit more concentrated. Well, it's concentrated geographically versus the EUROSTOXX 50. The range, as far as the difference in at-the-money implied volatility between the two, there have been instances where the DAX is 15 points higher than the EUROSTOXX 50. There are instances where the EUROSTOXX 50 at-the-money implied vol has been as much as 7 points higher, and that's 30-day at-the-money implied vol. Those differences show up in the VDAX and VSTOXX as well. There are VIX indexes for both of those. VDAX is typically at just a slight premium, but the range between those, VDAX has gotten as high as 8.25 points higher. The VSTOXX has gotten as high as 16, almost 17 points higher. When there's a big macro event, I'm assuming that a lot of people gravitate toward the EUROSTOXX 50 over DAX just to try and cover the whole thing, much like the S&P 500 in the U.S. And that's probably why you see that dramatic difference. But looking at those differences, sometimes it may make more sense if you want European exposure to look at DAX and or the EUROSTOXX 50. Also, the composition of them, Cornelius stole this one from me, but the fourth largest sector in the DAX is materials. It's like 10th largest in the EUROSTOXX 50. And that is an area that comes in the news periodically with rare earths and all of those types of things. I think that's what one of the biggest battles with China and the U.S. is right now, is getting your hands on as much of the raw materials at a decent price that you can. I mean, it's 12.25% of the DAX. It's about 5% of the EUROSTOXX 50. So materials are a big difference. Also, financials are about 5 percentage points bigger in the EUROSTOXX 50 than the DAX. I think there are high expectations for financials this year based on some really high-profile companies thinking about going public. If we get some weakness in the equity markets, those things may get shelved. So if you've got a strong opinion about the financials, you may be thinking about the EUROSTOXX 50 over the DAX. But those are the kind of things that you would take into account. And I love how I said trade one market, focus on one market. Now I just spent 5 minutes talking about trading two markets. They're similar enough that I'm not contradicting myself.
Well, we brought up on the last show, you're right. European financials had a banger year last year. It'd be interesting to see if they can repeat that. We are already coming up against it, man. Time flies when you're talking all things Eurozone and markets. But before we get out of here, I'd like to make sure we give you folks a chance to ask your questions, so it's time to answer the red phone.
What's on your mind as you're navigating the wild world of European derivatives? Let's find out as we answer the red phone.
All right, welcome to the red phone, the portion of the show where you folks take the reins, your questions, your comments. I appreciate all of you who take the time to reach out. I don't think we're going to have time to answer all of these. We will endeavor to squeeze on as many as we can. Really quickly, Russell, you were just talking about correlation. I don't know if you have hot numbers for the DAX versus the S&P 500, but we have a question along those lines from Similar. He wants to know if correlations between the DAX and the S&P 500 continue to weaken. What does that mean for diversification in a portfolio built around U.S. equities? Do you have those numbers at your little fingertips, sir?
I don't have them updated for some time, unfortunately. But if if they're saying that the correlations are starting to break down a bit, then you're most definitely getting diversification benefits by focusing on one market versus the other. Especially if you've got a fundamental outlook that is different for one market relative to the other. So yeah, I mean, if the correlations are coming down, that is a time that maybe you do think about combining them for your equity exposure.
Cornelius, I don't mean to throw you under the bus. A correlation, maybe I'm sure you don't have the data at your fingertips either. But anything you want to add here for Mr. Similar or Mrs. Similar, maybe? And I'm also going to throw on this question because we are coming up against it from MRTTM, maybe Mr. TTM. He wants to know if the Supreme Court rules against the emergency tariffs this week, how will that impact VSTOXX versus VIX? And do we expect impact to be felt in one more than the other? So a twofer, Cornelius, take it however you like. The correlation between the DAX and the S&P 500, and also a VSTOXX versus VIX through the lens of the Supreme Court ruling on the tariffs, sir.
As you mentioned, I do not have the figures at my fingertips. Sorry for that. But I would expect that the Supreme Court rulings, not sure what, Russell, your opinion would be on that, but I would expect it to be a bit more reflected in the VSTOXX itself, given the sensitivity. But you may have a different opinion on that.
Mr. Rhoads, any thoughts, sir?
On the Bobl show, every week, I'll get on, what happened last week. And it's been very redundant with respect to every week, midweek, we seem to have a move up in the volatility indices. And then by the time the week's over, we're back almost to where we started. And I think that's the kind of reaction that we would get, if people consider if the Supreme Court ruling is negative. And I think there'll be an initial knee-jerk reaction. And then it's going to be, okay, how are they going to work this problem out? And much like just about any short-term market moving news item, we'll forget about it in a few days. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get, and I think it would be have a similar impact on both markets. One of the, I don't know what time of day, it just seems like Supreme Court decisions do come out in the afternoon. And even though the European market is closed, the European futures are open. And I actually, I recently, and I know we're mostly talking about indexes here, but recently I showed how being involved in VSTOXX futures around some of the afternoon news in the U.S. actually works better for you than being in VIX. So, keep those markets in mind, even after mid-morning U.S. time.
All right, let's keep going, see how many more we could squeeze in. A lot of questions about U.S. versus European vol. I get it. That's a lens that's important for a lot of you. Let's go to this question here from 7 and 8. A lot of fun handles on the show this week. He talks about stocks and VSTOXX as well. He says stocks and VSTOXX are the two obvious stopping points for U.S. traders looking to trade on EUREX for the first time. But what is a lesser-known product that U.S. traders should be taking a look at? Well, interesting. Cornelius, as our EUREX representative, this one's for you, but if anyone else wants to chime in after him, feel free. Cornelius, so we've talked about the big dogs, we've talked about, stocks and VSTOXX, but maybe is there perhaps a lesser known, less heralded product over there at EUREX that you think more U.S. traders should be taking a look at?
Sure. I mean, there's many, but if I was to mention one, Russell just mentioned the outlook on European financials and the how they are reflected in DAX and EuroSTOXX. If you want to trade it in a cleaner way, just have a look at the EuroSTOXX banks futures. It has been growing tremendously over the past years, and dominated by some French banks, of course. But the overall ADV is already, I think, close to 200,000. So highly liquid, super interesting to look at. And you can also check out all the other sector index futures. But I think the banks one, that's probably the most interesting one to have a look at right now, given the expectations and the markets moving around that.
Mr. Rhoads, same question for you. Any less heralded products you think folks should be aware of over there in the Eurozone?
I got beaten because I was all excited to talk about the financials. A lot of people don't realize that that bank index is a very, very active future over there, and a good one to pair up with the EUROSTOXX 50. The Europe 600, is a more broad index, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me before you ask, but I do know that the correlation is similar to what we see with DAX versus the EUROSTOXX 50, where they deviate periodically. They have different weightings as well. This one's traded 41,000 contracts today. It's got an open interest of over 600,000 contracts. So the STOXX Europe 600 futures is another market that I would definitely point people to.
All right, we see how many more we could squeeze in here in the few minutes we have remaining. Let's go out to Y2JJ. Y2JJ wants to know, are there any nuances about time zones and liquidity that U.S. traders should keep in mind when trading European versus U.S. products? Well, there's a lot baked in there. I know, Mr. Rhoads, you've talked before about your cutoff date for VSTOXX here in the U.S. There's a lot of different ways, or cutoff time, I should say, for VSTOXX here in the U.S. There's a lot of different ways you could carve up the time zone and the liquidity topic, the broad cross-section of retail who are coming to engage with these products from around the globe. Obviously having to deal with a lot of time zone differences there. Any thoughts, or as they put here in the question, nuances you want to highlight for the listeners?
You know, that mid-morning thing that I just talked about, where we get, there are books that have been written about just trading the market close, trading that last hour or so. And what is generally a very slow time, or a slower time in the U.S., we generally an hour and a half after the market opens here, the U.S. markets open here. We're not going to have any economic numbers, probably not any market moving news. And it's just an opportunity to, if you're doing swing trading, multiple day type strategies, et cetera, and you base things on the close, you've got an extra market close there. One of the difficulties, and I've gotten past the difficulty by pulling intraday data on the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and the Russell 2000 and comparing it to the closes at the same time for the EUROSTOXX 50, DAX, the 600, and actually the Banks Index as well, all four of them that we've mentioned today. That's kind of my Europe close for all of those markets, and I think a good way to compare them as well. But it's also, a slower time in the U.S. And if you're finding that after a couple hours into the market day, you're twiddling your thumbs a bit, you really should be looking at the European markets.
All right, that music means we have come to the end of our sojourn through the European market briefs for this episode. Man, time flies when you're talking all things Eurozone. But before we go, let's go around the horn, check in with all of our participants here, get any final thoughts they want to share with you, as well as where can folks go if they want to learn more. Helena, we'll start with you. Obviously, a lot going on in TradingView these days. You're seeing a lot of evolution on the retail side of the space. So if you have any final thoughts you want to share on that evolution, have at it. And then B, if folks want to learn more, maybe kick the tires for TradingView for themselves, or perhaps, dare I say it, take the leap. Where should they go? What should they do?
Absolutely. Thank you for that final question. We definitely, everything that we've talked about today just points to the fact that there's been a huge evolution in retail trading. Certainly, the traders have become much more sophisticated over the last 2-3 years. Just to reiterate, on TradingView, both retail and professional traders are looking at the same charts, same price action, same market structure, and the same macro data. There isn't a retail version versus a professional version hidden behind a curtain. So we are treating traders exactly the same. This is all about teaching you about the trading process and risk management. And I'm really hoping that the Leap is going to provide that great opportunity. So sign up, register. If you don't have a subscription, sign up for the basic plan, which is only just under $13. Play with the platform, compare functionality. Certainly, we run a freemium model as well, but to participate in the competition, you have to have a subscription. So that's all from me, and good luck, everyone.
Cornelius, anything you want to add for the folks out there from the EUREX perspective, and perhaps for any of the folks out there who are considering taking the leap, sir?
Sure. I would say it's time for Europe. We've seen that with many institutional investors as well, looking to diversify beyond US markets and changing their asset allocation and looking more into Europe. And I think the same should hold true for retail investors looking for interesting sources of alpha. We've got a bunch of products being interesting, and the Leap is really the moment to get into that, to get started without any risk, test your strategies, test your views, and just get started and get going to see if Europe is something for you.
There you go, listeners. EUREX.com, EUREX.com is the wellspring from whence all the content on this show flows. But today, we're adding a new wrinkle, eurex.com/competition. So if you too are brave enough, perhaps curious enough to take the leap, check it out. It kicks off in a little under 6 days. Should be interesting. I'm looking forward to checking back in on this as the show progresses and see how this leap contest is unfolding. I can already see some of our pro folks are intrigued by the concept. So check it out, eurex.com/competition to learn more. And last but not least, Mr. Rhoads, if folks want to check out all of your research, whether it's on correlation or block options trading or anything else, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, the YouTube channel is Academic Market Insights that I do with a professor up the road at Purdue. That's where I posted the video about responding to the question about VIX correlations, and now I have to go do one about DAX and the S&P 500. Thanks for giving me more work, Mark. So I should get that up in the next couple of days. Actually, I should do a general video about how I analyze U.S. versus European markets and the reason behind that mid-morning thing. So I will definitely do that. Anything I do, I put out there on Twitter. It's just my full name, RUSSELL,
2 S's, 2 L's, RHOADS. That is going to do it for us on the European Market Brief today. Not going to do it for the network. We will be back after the closing bell, of course, to talk all things hot options. So if you want to hear what the latest and greatest options activity is, yet another reason to be subscribed to the full network. And if you're not checking out the Pro, not only are you missing out on fun live streams like this and the chance to ask questions during the show, and of course the upcoming Vol Deathmatch, but also our Pro folks get an extra treat, an extra exclusive today. You will be getting the panel I just did last week with Mr. Tony Saliba and Greg Stevens from Fidelity and a whole bunch of other fun folks, looking back at the 50-plus year history of options at the STOXX 100th anniversary conference. It was a fun session, and we made sure our Pro folks got to play along as well. So check that out, yet another reason why you should be hanging out in the Pro. And then we'll see you back here with all the rest of our usual content here on the network until we're back again quite soon with another episode of the European Market Brief. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The European Market Brief, brought to you by EUREX, is your trusted source for the latest insights on European trading and market trends. As the home of Euro stocks, VSTOXX, DAX, and European rates derivatives like the Bund, Bobl, and Schatz, EUREX stands as the leading European derivatives exchange. Learn more about trading EUREX futures and options at www.eurex.com.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.